Anybody, anywhere,
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen.
This pass caught by Paulsen, the tight end.
And from 106.7 The Fan, Grant Paulsen.
Welcome into Take Command with Logan Paulsen, who spent over a decade in the NFL. I'm Grant Paulsen. Check me out on 106.7 The Fan weekdays from 2 to 6:30. Of course, we give you 3 episodes of Take Command every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Those episodes drop. You can watch us on the 106.7 The Fan or Team 980 YouTube channels. You can listen to us wherever you get your audio. Logan, I got to say, you look swole, a little svelte in that shirt over there.
Oh, thanks, bro. I appreciate it. You know, like it's one of those things where I have to work very hard to look this average. So thank you for noticing that commitment to mediocrity.
This is a Take Command Mailbag episode. There will be a lot of questions from a lot of people. I'll ask the first question for Logan Paulsen, though. What is your current gym routine, your workout? How many days a week? How long? How often?
So I try to get 5 days a week, and it just depends. So one will be like a push-pull lower body with some supplementary like upper body work. So push-ups, pull-ups, whatever I have, because it's all at the house. Because my schedule, we talk about it all the time, with the kids and stuff, it's crazy. So it's if I got 45 minutes, run down, do a quick lift, and then some extensive stretching because I've got some hip arthritis, got to clear that up. So that's kind of the two-parter. So 15-minute stretch, 45-minute lift. Then on the off day, so Tuesday, Thursday, I do my off day. I do 15 minutes of rower or some type of long-form cardio. And then Wednesday is another upper body emphasis, push-pull with lower body auxiliary. And Friday would be the kind of push-pull, lower, heavy day heading into the weekend. So, and then usually I play hockey on Sundays. So that's kind of my week.
Ooh, I love that. So this is so embarrassing, but I'll tell you anyway. There's no secrets here. So I exercised 2 days ago. Okay.
What do we do, Coach?
Well, this is what's so embarrassing. I don't even want to give you the details, but I'll just tell you, I'm just constantly I have some type of fear and panic of the gym because I just don't know what I'm doing. And there's an anxiety in there of all this stuff. Okay.
Bro,
so what?
I'm here for you, my guy.
Right. I understand. But then you have to be there and then you watch.
No. We can do it all remote, man. It can all be done remote. You just take a video yourself. I'll comment on the videos. I'll send you a workout. Bro, there's no need to be scared. No need to be scared. I'm here for you. I'm the ambassador to the gym for you.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm actually going to take you up on that.
Yeah.
But the second thing I was going to say is so I've been I got to do something. This is out of control. Death is imminent. What are we doing here? You get one of these. What's your problem?
Dude, death is imminent is crazy by the way.
Yeah, thank you. It's crazy work. So anyway, I saw this dude on Instagram who's a 700-pound guy. And he's dude, I've lost 70 pounds since 9 a.m. or whatever. You know how when you're that big, you just lose weight by the second? You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of exaggerating. I'm doing a little bit of a bit, but he was I've lost 300 pounds and, I just do this one routine every morning. And this dude was gigantic, right? And I'm all right, if this guy can do this, I'm going to crush this workout, whatever. So I get up in the morning. I did this thing. It was just a bunch of stuff at my house. I'm doing 75 ass to feet squats and whatever. Standing in my room. My son comes in. He's all size. He's what are you doing, Dad? He starts doing it with me.
Hell
and
yeah.
I have this epiphany actually my kids learning habits from me. That's great. So then I'm maybe I should do more of this, So anyway, so I do this workout 2 or 3 days ago that this dude does. I've barely been able to walk for 2 days. My hamstrings and my quads. I'm walking I don't know how to describe it, but I have to keep an egg between my butt cheeks. I'm so stiff. My legs, my knees are not bending, and it's my God, this guy I was joning on is a machine. This guy. I mean, what a silly this guy is. So that's where I'm at.
Love that for you, dude. I love it.
Yeah.
But you know what's crazy is it's the first couple are the worst ones. You just got to get those out of the way.
It was I'm not going to go through all the details because again, it's so embarrassing. But it was a basic you are a pathetic loser workout where it was 10 minutes of stepping up and down on a stair, a bunch of squats, just like whatever the biggest tub of goo workout you would think of is. And I'm telling you, walking has been the worst.
A chore for you
the last couple days. So I was like, that's tough. But anyway, now you guys know a little more about me. So I'm sure no one will use that against me on social media when they disagree with my next Commander's take. All right. Nobody's ever done that. David has a question on this Take Commander's mailbag.
All right.
He says, question for the next mailbag. You guys talk a lot about the impact of the David Blough modern offense in terms of how the offenses and various position groups can benefit from motion shifts, boots, waggles, play action, etc. My question is, does our defense benefit from going against the modern offense with all those elements versus the more static Kingsbury offense that other teams don't ever run? He says, would think an under-the-radar benefit of the change would be to prepare the defense. What do you think?
That's not an under-the-radar benefit. That is a benefit of it, right? I think when you just look at the defense last year, I think there's a bunch of reasons, and we've talked about those ad nauseum on the show as to why the defense struggled last year. Got injuries, there's some schematic stuff, there's just some lack of detail just generally. But the one thing that I think informs that lack of detail, quite honestly, is the fact that in practice, you're seeing all these static formations, right? So, everyone's been talking, I think I talked about it with you on your show last week, was like, why did last year's practice feel so funny? Like training camp practice feels so funny. One of the reasons was the defense was absolutely dominating the offense because the offense is relatively simple. And when it's simple, all of a sudden you go up to Green Bay and you get a jet motion across the formation and you haven't talked about it, you haven't worked it, you haven't ruled it out, you haven't worked that call. All of training camp, you're doing it in 1 week, and all of a sudden you're like, what do we do? And they get guys open, they get free runners, and that's part of it. And so, I'll tell you this as a story from experience. There was a period of time where playing a 3-4 defense was an absolute nightmare because all of your run rules change when you play a 3-4 as opposed to a 4 down front. But when I was here in Washington, we played 3-4 teams. And so, we played a 3-4 defense. Jim Haslett ran a 3-4 defense. So when we played 3-4 teams, we didn't have the same kind of issue in terms of adjusting our calls, adjusting our rules, because that was our base call that we'd rep all throughout training camp. So when we played Dallas, when we played Philly, it wasn't this big shocker because we'd seen these pressures, we'd seen this spacing, we knew what the calls were, and they didn't have the competitive advantage against us because that's something we saw every single day.
Makes sense, yeah. And I also think running an offense that is more like a lot of the offenses that you see, to reiterate and double down on that point, is just going to be naturally helpful. The Kingsbury offense is, I don't want to say it's a one-off, but it is hard to put in a drawer with many others in the league. Whereas how many, variations of this Ben Johnson, I don't think it's that far. It's in the same aisle, honestly, as the Kyle Shanahan offense in a lot of ways. It might be down the ways on the left on aisle 4, but they're in the same area of the grocery store.
Yeah, 100%. And just a small example, one of those things that you just pick up when you're watching minicamp is there's this great play where they line up in a formation, right? They motion, it ends up being a 2x2. And Sonny Styles, as a Mike linebacker, just happened to be watching him. He checks, calls an alert. That's echoed by the safety. They bump the back over. He makes another check, makes another alert. And that mechanic of communication is something that you're going to see, like you said, versus the Rams, versus Philly now. They run a similar offense like that. You're going to see that versus Dallas. You're going to see that versus the Giants. That's what people do. They do that stuff. And so I think it's great that you're getting your young signal caller, Frankie Louvu, Leo Chenal, Will Harris, exposure to those moments in practice where it's shoot. And then the other thing I love too, one of my favorite things that happens even at the high school level is when the defense runs something and you're like, I didn't think of that. What if this team that we're playing runs that? And all of a sudden you're like, okay, now let's drill it out. Let's make sure our rules cover this thing. And it makes your offense, makes your scheme more bulletproof. And I think that's what this is allowing you to do is every day, Ben Johnson or, David Blough runs a couple motions, couple shifts, couple different pass concepts, and the defense has to adjust. And the defense likewise has to do the same thing. So I think it's this great balance of defensive and offensive complexity that bulletproof the respective sides of the football.
Ben has a question here. Take Command Mailbag request. He says, I only relatively recently learned about run and pass game coordinators. I love hearing Logan go into detail on what and how a tight end coach teaches to players. He says, I'd love an episode breakdown on going deep on the impact the coaches can have besides the head coach and the coordinators, ideally also with takes on specific Commanders coaches. So I can give you some names on the staff in a second, but that is true. I mean, a run game coordinator and a pass game coordinator, even when I was covering the league on the daily beat back when you played at the beginning of your career, did not exist. This became in vogue as a way to keep guys in the building, I think, because, you only have one OC, one DC. The way that it works is teams can put in permission slips to interview coaches. So if you really like Sean McVay, who's the Washington's tight ends coach, and you want to bring him in as your coordinator, and they have, I'm just going to make this up, but like Kyle Shanahan as their OC, and he's not ready to be a head coach, but they're certainly not going to replace him. So how do they block Sean McVay from leaving their building? Well, people came up with you saw assistant coach titles or assistant head coach or whatever. So now you've got pass game coordinator / tight ends coach. And that's like almost the de facto number 2 OC essentially in that way. But that having been said, how instrumental are they and what kind of insight can you give us on that?
Yeah, I've actually, when I played, there was a level of mixed to moderate success with this what I saw. So obviously the run game coordinator, you say, oh, that's great. They can kind of spend their time and look and hunt and find these different looks and find the formations and the spacings in the front that you want. Look at all the first down pressures. That's great. We'll have solutions to that. But I always found if you had a strong personality at the run game coordinator and a strong personality at the pass game coordinator, there was a very clear division between run and pass game, because run game coordinators tend to want the formations to be a little bit tighter. Pass game coordinators tend to want the formations to be a little bit wider. And because the pass game naturally wants to take advantage of horizontal and vertical space, the run game wants to make sure we have angles to crack and block the people in the blocking surface. So I always found that you needed a very special person in that role. And the most successful person that I saw in that role was probably Mike McDaniel when I was in San Francisco, because he understood fundamentally what the offense was, right? So he was the run game coordinator. So he'd sit in a dark room with his little blanket over his head, and he'd be rewinding and fast forwarding film and be look at this formation out of strong. You see this, this is not a good formation but when the fullback's in weak, it's good to run to the right side. How do we make that happen on the snap?
Are they running their own meetings on the run game that are different than a normal meeting that you would have with the OC? Or is it the same meeting where they just call them up to go over the run game?
So so what it would be was you are all behind the scenes, and so you would develop that run plan in the meeting or in behind closed doors, and then the run game coordinator may present the run game, or the OC may present the run game, and the pass game coordinator may present third down, or the OC may do it. So when I was in San Francisco, for example, Mike did a ton of work, right? He did a ton of work coming up with first and second down formations, and he would talk with the pass game coordinator about marrying those things. So he was like the pseudo offensive coordinator, but it worked so well because he was in kind of auxiliary, or he was of the same mind, that's the way to put it, as Kyle. So when it came time for Kyle to look over the game plan, there wasn't this definitive split. It was all in kind of Kyle's brain via Mike. And so when Kyle would get into the install and present it, it was very clear, because it was okay, this marries with this. And Kyle was so damn smart. He'd get in there and be like, this marries with this is what we're going to call this, and he wouldn't be that involved in it. But
that would be hard for me, honestly. If I'm a savant like Kyle Shanahan, to delegate and kind of not be in control of such an important element. Now, this is why it's Mike McDaniel, who's his right-hand guy dating back to Houston, before Washington, Cleveland, everywhere he's been. So to your point, it's literally like it's him, just a different guy. But maybe that's why he did it that way. It would be hard to, if you're not Kyle, if you're not Sean McVay, if you're not one of the best in the sport, be a little easier to delegate, but I don't know. You almost want good on good, like good handling.
But to that point, though, it's not like Kyle's not involved. It's just all of the grunt work is kind of taken care of by Mike, and then Kyle gets in and supervises, checks, X's out, says, I feel like we're missing this, and then that gets added in, and then Kyle would present it. And to Kyle's credit, man, I think that just shows how smart he is, dude, because his ability to own that thing in a week after, again, doing the head coach stuff and the run game coordinator stuff was incredibly impressive. But to Ben's question, it depends. So when I was here in Washington, also the run game coordinator was Bill Callahan, and so I don't know if you guys remember, especially the last couple of years of his tenure here, the run game looked very specific and the pass game looked very specific. And he was such a strong personality, they could never get those two things to mesh together correctly. So you really need two guys who understand the general understanding of the offense, and then a coordinator who can kind of bring it all together. And it takes special people to do that because it's not yours. It's not your run game. It's the offense's run game, and therefore, by extension, the coordinator's run game. So I think that's where I find it really interesting, and I've seen it used with varying degrees of success because you really need special people in those pass game and run game roles, in my opinion, to make this thing work.
This guy, Ben, here also had this to say. He said he just listened to Charlie Kohler talking ball on a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
He said he wants us to have a tight end on the show to nerd out over personnel groupings. He says a topic you guys cover a bunch would be fun to have Logan drill quiz nerd out with a current tight end who plays a lot of different personnels. I mean, who would be the guy, because you have so many relationships around the league, that you would have the most fun like having on to break down offense with?
So I've worked with Charlie in the offseason. I worked with him coming out. Like, he is a very unique, smart personality. He'd be fun because he's kind of got a quirky sense of humor. He'd be great. Another one is Zach. Zach's fun more from like a route running standpoint. I always find that when you go to tight end, George Kittle is great. He's also really funny. And I think the thing that I've heard from George recently is a maturity when it comes to understanding like high level football. Because when I knew him, he was like a rookie. He wasn't like a rookie. He was a rookie. And so he kind of was just winning on like raw horsepower and just general athleticism and just raw physicality. And now when I hear him give interviews, it's cool to hear him kind of step back and understand the landscape of what Kyle's doing for him, how it benefits the quarterback, how it benefits, when he takes this release, how it benefits the other receiver that he's working with, how he understands the marriage between the run and the pass game. So like, all that stuff I think is cool to see his maturation, but all great guys, all really smart. Like even like a guy like Austin Hooper, when I played with him in Atlanta, like has become a really smart football mentor. And so like, I think the older guys who've been around a couple different systems to me are the ones that are the most encouraging and the most engaging, because when you talk to someone who's only been in one spot the whole time, it's a little bit like this kind of like, this is the best way to do it, or I hate this way. But as you've been around, Mike Vrabel coaches it like this, or when I was at DQ like this, and it's cool to see them pull these different experiences together. So there's a lot of guys, but those are some guys that just came to the top of mind as we were talking.
All right, let's get Kittle on. I heard that you're going to get Kittle on out of all that.
How cool would that be? That'd be nice, right? We had to get him in the offseason, obviously. We should have done that earlier.
It's the offseason. It's time.
I guess it's the month before.
Yeah, text him and see if he wants to come on and talk formations with us.
Love that. Right. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great. T says, mailbag question. Grant, do you think the team will rotate team captains each week again this season? I was never a fan of that and feel like there is value and continuity in having established team captains. What are your thoughts on that? I actually love this question, by the way. I'm not even doing a bit.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing?
No, because I had a bunch of different thoughts about it while you were talking, and you just came in. And also, sometimes you're doing like you're doing a bit, and you just like your energy came off like strong. Is why I'm like so sorry.
I'm dead serious. I love this question. So here's my guess. Okay, this feels like one of those things that like players love in the room. That on the outside, as like just like a grown up, I'm like, oh my god, you got to be kidding me. And it's like you have to be in it, right? Like this is my co-host on my show in DC, Danny. Like he always like Jones on different things, like Tell the Truth Monday and Tattletale Tuesday.
Yeah.
Walk Around Wednesday. But like the players eat this S up. Like they love it, and it's just like being in high school football all over again. So I say this to say, I think, I would assume, players love the captain's bit every week where Dan Quinn just goes like, this week on defense, playing against the team that cut him last year, we got Kaylavon Chason, whatever. And it's like, going back to Texas for the first time, we got this guy. And he's got like a backstory on who's showing me something at practice. It feels like he's just kind of, putting names in a blender or whatever.
Yeah.
But my point would be pick captains, the leaders who are the best players on the team. Please do it all year long. It feels very high school football to like rotate it every week based on, but maybe that's cynical of me. Like I don't have to be the guy that dislikes everything. Like it's kind of cool. Like I would think it was the most awesome thing ever if it was my high school team and we did a different thing every week based on practice. So why does the NFL have to be different? But I think it is pretty. The way they do it is it just feels very like youth football to me. I don't know.
So I'll tell you this, like that. The captain thing is symbolic in a lot of ways, right? There are certain times where your actual captain is the team captain for that week. And so what I mean by that is like when you're on the roster, like I know who the leader is. Like I know who that guy is. Like when I was in Atlanta, there was no doubt that Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Jake Matthews were the leaders of the offense. And what they said, what they did dictated the offense, right? It dictated really a lot for the team, but mostly for the offense, right? That's what happened. Like, Matt was a great leader in that way, and I really appreciate having.
They always wear a C?
No, that's the point. Like they would wear, they'd have the C on, right? Potentially, but they wouldn't go out for every coin toss necessarily, right? Because the coin toss thing is irrelevant. To me, that is a reward. So like it's a reward for a guy like Logan Paulsen, just as an example, like which it's meant a lot to me. So I got to go out for a captaincy 3 times in my career. And it's just like, hey man, like you're never going to make, $50 million in the league. You're never going to do this. You're not catching a touchdown every week, but we appreciate what you've done for the team and the organization. And here's just a little bit of an attaboy to you. But like, am I setting any kind of thing for that week? Am I doing the break? Hell no. Like the guy that does the break does the break. You know what I'm saying? Like the guy that has carved out that role is going to do that. It's really
by the way, that's hilarious. The guy that does the break does the break. Well said.
Yeah. So it's like, I forget who it was for for this team, but it was like, Brian, like I'm not going to get in front of Brian Arakpo when he was rolling here and be like, or London Fletcher. I'm not going to be like, Fletch, back up. I'm the captain this week. Let me do this. No, like that's Fletch's thing. He's the leader of the team. He's going to do what he does. And I'm going to get the reward for having a good week of practice and going out and doing the coin toss.
See, I think you've changed my mind here. This is why I like the show. Now, I will ask you, though, I have to clarify on, is Matt Ryan always going to have the C? Like, if he doesn't get the C, now I'm annoyed by that.
He has the C. Yeah, but like he's not going out.
Only so many C's that can be given out. Like,
yeah, but it was I forget what it was. I think there was like 6 dudes in Atlanta that had it, 3 offense, 3. No, it was.
But so like for the Commanders this year, I have to go back and look at this. But when they do the thing where every week they like post on social media this week's captains, is that in reference to like the people that are getting the carrot of going to the coin toss this week?
Yes.
Do they actually wear a C? And that means that week like Daniels doesn't?
No. That's not what that means. Like the guys with the C's get the C's. The guy that do the coin toss do the coin toss. And
see, my understanding was that the C's rotated every single week.
No, that was not that might be how they're doing it, but that's never been my experience when I played.
If like I like your way, if they do it your way, and I claim ignorance and apologize in advance for not knowing, but if they do it that way, where it's like, I actually think it's awesome, to be honest with you. Like now I like it. If it's like, hey, this like Jeremy Reeves is our heart and soul. Go out there, buddy. Traylon Burks just kicked ass last week and had 9 catches for 117 yards and had a great week of practice. You're the offensive leader this week. Like, cool. I love that because I like rewarding people, and like every company should do more stuff like that. That's not just a football thing. And that's where I think like Dan Quinn is a genuine person. I was like texting someone the other day when I was listening to his press conference. I'm like, I don't care what anybody thinks about Dan Quinn. He's a nice dude. Like he's a legitimately good dude. I actually do seem like really think he's a good guy. But I have to double check. As long as like Jaden Daniels and like Frankie Louvu, I don't know who it would be.
Yeah, who it's going to be.
Yeah. Terry McLaurin. As long as those guys are always wearing the C, then the other thing I'm not as concerned about.
Yeah, and most times, for example, like I'm trying to remember what they did here. Like it was like the offensive captain was like Trent Williams and maybe Robert Griffin III. I don't remember, but the defensive captain was London Fletcher, and then some other person, right? Yeah. Like those 2 guys, whoever they were, would go out every time with the special teams captain, and then the 2 other guys were like attaboys for the week. So you have like 5 captains out there. 2 of them are your bell cow leader, true dyed in the wool
Maybe
guys.
That's how they do it. Maybe it's always Jaden.
Yeah.
It's always Payne or Louvu or whoever.
Yeah, whoever that guy is, yeah.
And then the other 3 that we see on social, like rotate in. That could be.
Yeah. And that's how it was when I was, and which is freaking crazy. Like when I was in Atlanta, like I got to walk out with Jake Matthews, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, right? Those were the 3 captains. They were all on offense. And I was out there with them just like, hey. And I think I remember shaking hands with, it was like, whoever the big dog was for the other team. Like, and you're like, it feels very awkward because it's like Lane Johnson. Hello, sir. How are you? Like I'm just some random blocking tight end that doesn't deserve to be out here with you guys. But it was I will say, as a guy that was never that elite captain leader, but was also a leader kind of in the background, it was a nice kind of attaboy. Like, we appreciate you. And so I have a very fond place in my heart for those moments, but I do agree with you as well. Like, you shouldn't just be rotating captains, but I don't think teams do that. You have your captains that everyone knows and that are the face of the franchise and good leaders. And then you have the attaboy guys that come out every once in a while.
Remember when you went out to the midfield and Antonio Gates asked you to do a jersey swap after that?
And I was like, I'll sign it for you, Antonio.
He's like, will you sign this? Write a nice note right on the 2 of 82.
And I was like, yeah, man, anything for you. You know, I know you're coming up in your career, whatever.
Yeah. I thought it was nice that you were just like, keep working hard. You can do it.
Keep working.
You'll get there one day. I still see some basketball player traits, but you're a little raw, but
we'll get you there.
You just sunned him on the note on the jersey. He's so funny. All right, it's Take Command. Logan Paulsen and Grant Paulsen mailbag episode coming back. Welcome back to Take Command. Logan Paulsen and Grant Paulsen mailbag episode, reading some of your questions. Matt says, here's a mailbag topic for next week. He says, would love to hear from Logan on specific ways a head coach influences a team's success who does not have any direct coordinator obligations. I've always found this interesting, actually. For example, I know they set the tone for culture, style, accountability, etc., but what specific things do they have to do well to put their head coach stamp on the team? It's funny, when you're a head coach without coordinator obligations and things are going well, it's never, ever brought up. It's just kind of like, you're Mike Tomlin or whatever, right? But the first thing we do, and I'm guilty of this like everyone else, when it's going badly, is it's like, what do you do here exactly? Like, you bring me a list of the things you've done this week. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, I think it's a good question. So
it's funny. Yeah.
Dan Quinn is an example. Is going back to not calling plays. This is often a defensive-minded coach bit. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I really think what they listed out there is a good example. So I go back to one of the better head coaches that didn't call plays that I remember. That was Mike Shanahan. So the thing that I think coaches do is they build a culture. And what does that look like exactly? So a good example is like, hey, he gets up at the beginning of the year and he says, hey, this is what it means to be a Washington Redskin at the time. Like, we're not going to be late to meetings. If you're late to meetings, I'm going to fine you. If you do this, I'm going to fine. And just kind of goes through the framework like a teacher would at the beginning of the year, right? Like, we're not going to talk in class. We're not going to be late. We're not going to punch each other in the, just do that. And then the other thing that I appreciate about him is that once he set that standard, he acted on the discipline of it. So, like, for example, there was one of my teammates who was late to a meeting, and he was late to 2 meetings. And then Mike didn't just fine him straight up or brought him in his office and said, hey, man, the next time you're late, I'm going to fine you. And it's going to be this amount of money. And it was a lot of money. It was like $30,000. And the guy was late a third time, and he got fined $30,000, right? Like, he just did a good job of managing that stuff. If you're late to practice, this is the fine. I'm not going to play favorites. I don't care if you're the most important player on the team or the worst player on the team, you're going to get fined. So we were never late to meetings for the most part, and we were never late to practice. We always handled our business. Like, we didn't miss the team bus. And that's all, in my opinion, him, right? That was all his kind of leadership structure. On
a week-to-week basis with the schedule, how often would he be the leader of the meeting? Like, I would imagine the way I envision it would be like the first meeting of the week when you're going to play the Cowboys. Like, he might go over a couple slides on, here's the history, here's, their best players, here's our goals for this week. And then he would call up Kyle to give the game plan. Or like, is that about right? Or how does that work?
I'd say that's approximately right. And it depends on the guy. Like Dan, for example, who I liked a lot as a head coach when I was in Atlanta, would say something. Yeah, Dan Quinn would say something every day. And it wasn't like a long meeting, but it was like, hey, this is the point of emphasis for practice today. This is what we want to see. Like, these are some plays maybe that we got to improve on. Nothing like mean, like New England Patriots style, but just a couple. And it wasn't long.
But show tape of bad plays?
Sometimes, yeah. Or, hey, like, we had a rules meeting. He would lead that. He'd like get up there and be like, hey, this on this special teams play, this punt returner forgot this rule and they caused a turnover or a loss or whatever the thing was. Let's just be aware of that. Let's not let let that be us this week, for example. He'd do the officials review. Do the officials review, right? Be like, the officials call this kind of stuff. Let's just be aware of our holding or our pass interference or whatever. And that would be a different
every
meeting.
week where he'd go over that week's crew. What day? What day of the week would that be? I
think that was usually like a Thursday, like kind of like right before red zone. I remember being that. Like,
So he was pretty hands-on involved. Was Mike Shanahan that involved?
A little bit different, right? So Shanahan would get up and kind of do what you said and be like, hey, we got this team this week. Here's like one or two thoughts I have about the game that I think we got to really take care of defensively, XYZ, offensively, XYZ. And then he'd be like, all right, break up into your position groups and then, or your sides of the ball. Then Kyle would give his more detailed presentation on some of the topics that Mike had talked about and kind of present that out. So really, he kind of laid the foundation. But to me, the best head coaches I was around were guys that were really good at being like, this is the culture, this is the standard, this is the schedule for the week. They do a really good job setting the schedule and doing some administrative stuff. But then really the person that is kind of enacting that is the coordinator. And then kind of it works like a tree, like with the tendrils and the roots coming down. Like the position coach then reports to the coordinator, and then like they kind of are your chief officers on each side of the football. And so I think that was one thing I really appreciated about Mike is the structure felt very clear, very secure, and he had really two awesome coordinators that he leaned on quite a bit in terms of, and he had things that he wanted to see, right? So for example, one of the things that I remember is Hazlitt wasn't a big fan of rain at the time, was what they called it, which was our all-out pressure. But Mike wanted that in every single week because he believed in it and he thought it was problematic for defenses. And so that was something he pushed for, right? There were other things offensively where he'd be like, hey, he'd come into the meeting kind of midway through because he used to sit in his office with a big TV and listen to the meetings as they were going on. And he'd come in and be like, hey, Kyle, just make sure you review box 4. And Kyle would be like, okay. And then he'd leave and he'd do that. So he's kind of quality controlling the offense.
He was watching the meetings. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. And so he'd come in.
He had everything on camera, everything mic'd up.
Everything recorded. And so I always appreciate that. And then compared to some other coaches I had where the discipline wasn't quite as refined, the schedule wasn't quite as clear, it was a little bit more loose, and you're kind of like, that really rubbed me the wrong way as a player personally, because I'm like, why does this guy get to be late to meetings? Why does this guy not have his cleats on for practice? Like, and then other people follow suit and it kind of deteriorates as you go. So I always appreciate that structure. So I think that's where the head coach comes in, is they really are an administrator and they really provide structure.
Was there ever any like coaches that would have you come to their office regularly for like meetings on like progress report type stuff, or was
head
that
coaches?
Yeah.
No, not me personally. Like,
but so what about like open door policy? Did you ever go to a coach's office to talk to them about something?
No, I mean, I think that was the thing, is like I was very aware of my role, so I would talk to my position coach. And in some cases, I would talk to the coordinator. Like I had a disagreement with my position coach one year, and I didn't want to throw my position coach under the bus, but like the coordinator called me into the office, and so we had a conversation there about what happened, what was said, and we got it cleaned up. And so like that was about it. Because like to me, like unless it was a big emergency, I wouldn't talk to the coordinator. I would talk to the position coach, and then they would talk to the coordinator. Like that was like the hierarchy of progression. Right. There are some guys, like, for example, when I was in Atlanta, Dan Quinn had a leadership council, and those guys would meet with him every single week, and he would kind of get
still does that.
Yeah, and they would talk every single week, and they kind of, this is the tender of the team, this is where we're at, this is what we think we need to work on. And I think that's also important. But that was a tool that he used to kind of, again, feel out his message and feel out the team.
It feels to me on the outside, I have no idea internally, it feels like Quinn is one of those guys who's like super approachable. You know,
yes.
If you're a player, I get the hierarchy thing, but if you had to talk to him about something, you could just walk in like Rivera style and he'll sit you down on the chair and give you a hug kind of deal.
I got a funny story about that. So when I was in Atlanta, like, so I'd come from Washington. San Francisco was okay because I knew Kyle pretty well, but like, you know, I didn't talk to like front office people, wouldn't talk to a GM. And I was walking down the hallway and Dan was talking to the GM at the time. I forget his name. And
Thomas Dimitrov.
Yeah, Thomas Dimitrov. And so I was just walking, and like every other place I'd been, you don't make eye contact, you don't talk to them because those are the big boys. They're having big boy money conversations. And Dan stopped, dapped me up, and then Dimitrov was like, I thought you were just going to walk by and not say what's up. And I was like, just so you know, every other place I've been at, like, that's like a no-fly zone. So they're like, you know what I mean? Like, to your point, Dan was super chill about like, hey man, like, what's up? Like, we're all in this together. And that's one of the reasons I think people love him, quite honestly, is because he's just a good human being in that regard.
Steven asks, question for Take Command. How easy is it to get into a positive mindset about seeing your place on the roster come into question? He says, I recognize that players like yourself or Trent Scott, respectfully, are always on the wrong side of the top 40. I mean, that is just inappropriate, Logan, what he just said.
No, I wear it as like a badge of honor, kind of.
You do, I know. And that's why he's comfortable asking. But he says, for players like Armstrong, Luvu, how easy is it? This is a great question. Knowing that the staff might have replaced your starting position or some of your snaps with their guys. That's a great question.
Yeah. Read the last part again. You cut out just replacing snaps.
Yeah, he says for the guys that do get paid really good money that are veteran starter types like Luvu or Dorrance Armstrong, when they go out and they sign Odafe Owe or Leo Chanel and Sonny Styles, it's pretty clear they're picking their guys at your position. Like, how does that change your mindset, and how do you stay positive?
It's tough, man. I mean, that's why, the NFL is a big boy league. And that happened to me a bunch when I was playing. And it's really just like, I wasn't always like this, but I had to develop a bunch of different psychological tools to manage stress and manage what was success and what was failure for me, right? So like, it literally was like, what can you control? Can you control them signing other people? No. Can you control your reps at practice? No. Can you control the outcomes of those reps in practice? Yes. Let's work on controlling that. Can I know the playbook? Yes. Let's control that. And it really was like this kind of crazy, beautiful mind, like yes, no at the bottom of the tree. If yes, then go to the next one. And I think everybody develops their own methodology for that. And I will say, guys that don't have good methodologies for that have when that adversity comes for them. And I think you see it a lot of times with older players who have kind of passed their prime. They have a hard time humbling themselves to new roles, new opportunities, new situations, and developing new systems to help them kind of work through those moments. And so I've seen a lot of guys who near the end of their career couldn't identify that it was different. And as a result, they were cut, right? Because they expected certain things, and then those things weren't adhered to the way they thought they were. And then they were kind of making kind of malcontent on the team. They're like, well, you're the second string linebacker. Like, we'll just get somebody else. And so you really got to be humble, flexible, and be ready to handle any type of adversity that's presented in those situations.
Well said. He's Logan. I'm Grant. So Logan is going to be taking a well-deserved break, just a couple of pods off. He'll be back with us next week. I've got a couple of fun podcasts with a couple of DC media members and surprise guests coming up as the week continues. So we will keep Take Command in your feeds. We'll make sure we entertain and provide some insight for you on the Commanders as the week goes on. Logan, have a great trip, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
For producer Evan and for Logan, I'm Grant, saying so long for Take Command.